All right, quick question. Have you ever looked at a design and just thought it feels expensive, but you couldn't really explain why? Spoiler alert, it wasn't the fonts or the colors. Most likely, it was due to space. Space in graphic design is like silence in music. It's invisible, but it's kind of the thing that makes everything else work. And today I am going to show you how space could literally change how people feel about your design. Hello, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Candace Bobchuk. I am a designer, photographer, and artist, and I like coming here on this channel and sharing my tips and tricks with you every single week. And this video today is part of my series on design elements and principles. Today's topic is space, both practical and psychological. Okay, but first we have to start with the basics. There are two types of space in graphic design, negative and positive. You could think of positive space as the stuff, the shapes, the typography, the objects. And negative space is the nothing. It is the background, the breathing room, the silence between notes. And the absolute best example would be the yin and yang symbol. Both sides, they balance each other out, and one doesn't exist without the other. And here's the trick that only graphic designers understand. Negative space, it isn't actually empty. Your brain activates it. The human brain, it's actually wired to find shapes and complete patterns. So negative space becomes part of the design. Think about the FedEx logo. Once you notice the arrow in the negative space, you can't unsee it. It's very similar to the WWF panda logo. The entire panda is built out of suggestion. Okay, so let's talk about why space is more than just aesthetics. It changes how people actually feel. First, we'll talk about cognitive load. When design is overcrowded, then our brain has to work harder. It tends to feel very stressful, whereas a design where there's space, it feels more calm, and it is easier for the viewer to understand your message. And this is the reason why Apple ads feel so luxurious. They are masters of using negative space. They literally give your brain a break. And next, we'll talk about focus. Negative space, it acts like a spotlight. Whatever sits in the middle of the negative space automatically feels more important. And next up, we'll talk about emotional response. Space in design feels intentional. It could be calm or expressive, whereas crowded design, it feels chaotic and cheap. It is very overwhelming. Okay, here's a quick story for you guys. I once saw a cocktail menu at a bar, and every single drink that they had was crammed onto a single page. Instead of a menu, it looked more like tax paperwork. And then when I went back to the same bar, you could tell that they hired a designer. The new redesigned menu, it had breathing room and space, and it wasn't all just one page. And suddenly, that bar, it felt more upscale. Even though the drinks, they were the same. It's just the space on the menu, it changed my perception. Okay, so now let's talk about how designers use space. We need to talk a little bit about proximity. Proximity basically means the space between shapes. If shapes are close together, they feel related. And if shapes are far apart, then they feel separate. It's kind of like social distancing, but for design. And then next we have overlap. When objects are overlapping, then your brain decides which one is closer. It is an instant way to create depth. And next we'll talk about opacity. Opacity softens barriers between positive and negative space. Layering can suggest dominance, closeness, or softness, depending on how you use it. And then next we'll talk a little bit about light and shadow. Shadows create dimension. Hard shadows create drama. And soft shadows, that makes your design feel more approachable. And next up we'll talk about perspective. Things that are farther away look smaller, lighter, maybe blurrier. Even in things like 2D design, you could fake closeness with scale and sharpness. And one quick psychology note, all of these techniques, they mirror the real actual human perception. It is the same way that we read a social space. Closer people feel more personal, whereas distance, it feels more detached. So how can we use space with intention? Here's a few things that you could do. Step number 1 is create a focal point. Guide the viewer's eye first to what matters the most. Step number 2 is work on balancing the layout. Symmetry feels calm where asymmetry feels more energetic. Step number 3, set the visual tone. Wide open space, it naturally feels more high-end, Whereas pack space, it feels more budget friendly. And finally, step number 4, define the brand's personality. Think about luxury brands. They use lots of white space, whereas discount stores, everything is crammed together. Okay, an example of this is like when I was working on an absinthe bar menu for a client. All the spacing I used in that menu, it was very intentional. And it created a whole different vibe that went along with their rebrand. Okay, and here's a couple quick tips that you could use right away. Tip number 1, use the squint test. Squint out your design. Does one certain thing stand out, or is there other elements that are competing? Tip number 2 is treat space as a frame. Don't think about it as the background. It is like the stage that your elements are standing on. And the final tip I have for you is sometimes break the rules. Sometimes crowding everything on one side and leaving the other side empty, it creates tension. And tension is visually interesting. Controlled imbalance, it could be powerful when used right. So space isn't just emptiness. It's not wasted. It's a tool. It is how you reduce stress and create balance. It actually sets the tone and it guides the viewer's eye. Space is the very thing that transforms your design from decoration to communication. I would love to know in the comments, what's one piece of design work that you think uses space so well? Did it actually change how you felt? And if you found this video helpful, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe because I make videos just like this every single week. That's all I have for you for now. See you next time. Bye-bye.